morning, my name is Lisa White. I'm the Health Promotion Manager. Welcome to my Tuesday morning short. This morning's topic is managing anger through forgiveness. This is actually a module in our Managing Anger Moments program. So I'm just going to give you about 15 minutes out of it this morning. So just to give you a little tidbit, it's something to think about. I hope you all had a good weekend. I'm wondering if anybody's here today. I know it's early morning on a Tuesday after a long weekend, but hopefully you'll get a chance to tune into this a little bit later. But before we get started, this presentation you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Even though I'm not using slides, I'm just talking to you guys. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of sensitive nature, so not appropriate for children. We ask for parental discretion, or it's really for people who are 18 years of age and older. And so that's the disclaimer there. So I don't know if any of you have had a chance to tune in to any of the other videos that Jeanette and I have been doing. I think we're getting up to close to about 30 live videos so far since the gym or the health promotion office is closed down. I know the gym's open now, but our offices are still closed. So if you get a chance to go back in time a little bit, I did do an entire Thursday morning briefing on managing angry moments. So if you've seen it, this will be sort of a little side dish of information that goes along with managing angry moments. So when we talked about anger in the last episode or the last session, we talked about that anger is an emotion, and we're not telling people not to be angry or not to experience anger because it is an emotion. And we talked about the destructive forms of anger, and we also talked about the destructive forms of anger. We talked about what causes anger. We talked about 5 different areas. I mean, there's multiple reasons why people feel anger, but we kind of pinpointed 5 different areas. We talked about structure. We talked about interests. We talked about relationships, we talked about facts and data, and we talked about people's values and beliefs. And so we gave you a little bit of an understanding of sort of where does anger come from and why are we feeling anger, what causes anger. So this morning we're going to take a look at forgiveness. And we're going to just look at it at the surface level. I don't want to go down into too deep because I don't want to bring up too many deep hurts for people. But what tends to happen is you look at the relationship between anger and forgiveness. If somebody has been hurt, betrayed, disappointed, not having their expectations met, if they've not been able to sort of work through something that somebody else has maybe wronged them, or even if you've wronged somebody else. So there's 2 types of forgiveness. There's how we forgive other people, and there's also how we forgive ourselves for the things that we may have done. So if I was to give you a definition of forgiveness, because there's so many of them out there, I'll just give you one little short line. Forgiveness is to cease resenting and wanting to punish an offense. To cease, not increase. To cease resenting and wanting to punish an offense, flaw, or mistake. And that was by the Oxford Dictionary back in 2010. So when we look at if people have wronged us, whether it's our perception or whether it's actually true, if we have experienced irritations, annoyances, disappointments, unmet expectations, disloyalty, broken promises, a lack of support, broken trust, betrayal, etc., etc. If we've had some of those experiences and we haven't worked through some of them and either let some of them go. So on the ones that people tend to be able to let go are things like annoyances, irritations, disappointments, unmet expectations. Depends on the disappointment, right? There are other ones that may require forgiveness, which would be the broken promises, the betrayal, the disappointments, and so on, the disloyalty and things like that. So some of the ones on the surface, it's not a matter of forgiveness, it's a matter of letting go of certain things. So there's the difference between letting go and then a period of having to forgive somebody or forgive yourself. When we're not able to do that, it tends to build up resentment. People tend to hold grudges, and then it tends to come out in the forms of people being angry. Have you ever been angry yourself and realized that the cause of your anger is because of what somebody else has either said or done to you, and you never really navigated through that, and then over time you build up this sort of resentment, you hold a grudge, this anger towards that other person. And it can affect your relationships. As we talked about it can impact your relationships, and it can impact your performance. It can also impact the relationships, not just within your family, but within the community and things like that. People tend to have a lower tolerance if they're holding on to something that may require some forgiveness. The opposite of forgiveness is resentment. And the resentment is really anger and ill will in view of real or imagined wrong. Sometimes we're holding on to anger about what somebody else has either said or done, and we may have it wrong. Our perceptions may have been off, or we may not have communicated effectively, or we may not have collected all the information. When we hold on to grudges, so when you hold a grudge against somebody else, it brings about bitterness and anger in relationships and new experiences. It takes away enjoyment of the present. It can cause people to become depressed and anxious. And we tend to lose valuable and enriching connections with other people when we tend to hold on to grudges. So I've been teaching this program for probably 18 years-ish or so. And the Managing Anger Moments program is one of my favorite ones. And I know that people come in, and this is actually a module that's towards the end, because as we educate through anger and information and practice, and we have a good understanding of where our anger comes from, we get into that forgiveness piece, and people tend to sort of reevaluate, or they look back in hindsight and they think, some of these things that I've been holding on to has actually been impacting how I behave and interact today because of some of the grudges and resentments that I've been holding on from other people, and I haven't worked through those and either let some of them go or chose to forgive the other parties or persons. Remember, forgiveness is for you. You can control your forgiveness, but you can't control other people. Other people may ask you for forgiveness, but you giving that forgiveness, that's really for you. And forgiving yourself is also for you as well. Some of the benefits of forgiving, and I can't get into too much of the other stuff because I don't have a whole lot of time, but if you're able to think back, or if you have current relationships or current things that you're sitting with, and you're able to get yourself to a place of forgiveness, I'm going to give you some information on how you can do that. But before that, I'll give you some sort of benefits on what could come about if you're able to work through forgiveness. If you can work through forgiveness, people tend to have healthier relationships, whether it's with family members, co-workers, people out in the public. People have a higher level of tolerance. They're more patient. People are able to have a greater psychological well-being, less stress and hostility, lower blood pressure. So I talked about anger being anger and stress go hand in hand. Anger is actually a symptom of stress for people. And we know that ongoing stress, when it's not taken care of, or if it gets to a chronic level, can be detrimental to our health. So can anger if it becomes destructive. We talked about constructive forms of anger, where anger is a good thing sometimes. It lets us know that we're potentially in conflict. It can let us know that there's a problem. It can let us know that we don't agree with something. It can let us know that we're protecting our self-esteem. It can let us stand up for some of the things that we believe in. And that's important. When it becomes destructive is when the intensity and duration and frequency get very high, and that it impacts our relationships, our performance, our sleep, our health, and our interactions in society and within our communities. So that is when it becomes a problem. And there's even more things that could cause it to become a problem, right? And so if you're able to manage your anger, and if your anger is coming from a place that you have to forgive somebody or other people, then if you can do that, it can bring back a sense of balance, a sense of a well-being to your life, and it can help with those side effects that may be a cause of you not being able to forgive somebody and holding on to anger. So it can help your health improve, and lowering blood pressure, lowering your heart rate. It can have an impact on your sleep and an impact on your motivation, and so on and so on. So being able to navigate through that can help improve those things. People tend to have fewer symptoms of depression, anxiety, and chronic pain, and it lowers the risk of alcohol and substance misuse and gaming and gambling. So if people are in a place where they have been wronged or hurt, and they want to withdraw from their situation, they can turn to substances. They can also turn to gaming and gambling and so on. If they're able to work within their relationships and come to a place of forgiveness, then those things tend to get better, right? People tend to use substances less, game less, gamble less, and so on. So I'm going to give you a couple little quizzes here. Forgiveness is the same as forgetting, true or false? Forgiveness involves one person, and that is you. And forgiveness is not forgetting. So forgiveness is letting go, working through hurts and things like that, but doesn't mean that people don't forget. Forgiveness is the same as excusing. Okay? False. Forgiveness is the same as reconciling. False. So just because you forgive somebody, whether it's in a relationship or something like that, it doesn't mean that you have to get back together. It doesn't mean that you have to reconcile the relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a personal relationship. It just means that you have forgiven that person or parties, and that you're going to move on from that, and you're not going to let that impact your well-being. Forgiveness makes you weak. On the contrary, forgiveness makes you feel stronger. Forgiveness depends on the other person's acknowledging the wrongful behavior. For some people, it's harder to navigate through forgiveness if they know that the other person has not taken ownership in their part. That sometimes makes it harder for people to get through that. But remember, who's forgiveness for? Forgiveness is for you. So if people aren't acknowledging their part in it and you've chosen to forgive that person, then you need to work through that, right? But they don't necessarily have to acknowledge their ownership in their part. So forgiveness is a choice, and it's a will to go into the process of forgiving. So the first piece in all of that is to decide that you're going to forgive somebody or someone or a group of people, okay? And that decision is the first thing that you have to make. But it's the first thing you have to make, yes, but one of the things you have to do is to actually pinpoint what it is that's causing the anger, and if it is related to what somebody else has done to you, or whether it's something that you have done to somebody else, then to make that decision to work through forgiveness is actually part of that, okay? So I'm going to talk about forgiving others, and then I'm going to talk about forgiving yourself. For some people, self-forgiveness is easier than forgiving others, and for others, forgiving themselves is harder than forgiving others. So let's talk about forgiving other people. So first thing you have to do is decide or declare your intention to forgive, to stop seeking revenge, retaliation, to stop allowing bitterness and anger to take over when you either interact with or think of the person or persons and events. Okay, recognize your hurt and your anger. Allow yourself to feel the hurt and to acknowledge that a wrong was committed. Acknowledge that your needs and expectations were not met. Remember, that's a part of that first part that I talked about, right? Talked about resentment, we talked about grudges, we talked about why people may have to forgive other people, whether it's shallow hurts or deep hurts, right? So you have to pinpoint, is it a shallow hurt? Is it something that I just have to let go of? Or is it a more deep hurt where I might have to work through that either on my own with support, or do I need to reach out and get some counseling or therapy to work through some of that? And then choose to end or renew the relationship. So and I feel like there's something missing in there, and I feel like you have to look at sort of a time frame of what that might look like for you. I know that we could make that decision to forgive someone else, and I've worked through that before, and it all depends on the relationship I have with that person or what has actually happened. I know that things have happened in the community where someone goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, hey, no problem. It's a let go thing. But some people can't even let go of some of those things when somebody makes a mistake in public, whether it's driving or whether it's getting a coffee or your hamburger's wrong or somebody bumps into you or whatever it might be, someone in retail didn't respond the way you wanted to. And then remember how you respond to those situations and let go of some of those situations can impact your health. And that's part of letting go and part of forgiveness, right? I think that time frame has to be in there as well. I know for me, it's like a gut psychological feeling. I've made the decision to do that, and now I've got to sort of physiologically, psychologically bring my body and mind to actually forgiving that person. So that's why it's important to make that mental decision, because remember the thinking skills model that I talked about a long time ago, where our thinkings lead to the thoughts of a situation lead to our physical sensations, which leads to our emotions, which leads to our behavior. So if I am in that thought process of deciding that I want to forgive this situation, then I can lead myself through those emotions, which is going to bring myself back to my behavior and so on. And our perceptions, our values and beliefs, the costs and benefits, and all of that have an impact on how we think about situations. So how close is the person to you or people? What do they mean to you? Is it a work-related thing? Is it your child? Is it a mother, father, friend? Like, what is it? What is it that you need to forgive, and what does it mean to you? Because it could be very quick, and it can take a longer period of time for some people. So when we talk about forgiveness and managing angry moments, it's educational, information, awareness, and we're giving people some skills and some strategies, right? If you find that those are not working and you're not able to navigate through that on your own, it's important that you reach out to those mental health professionals or padres. And formal resources are great, but you may need some informal resources. Friends, family members, maybe somebody who has been through something that's similar to what you've been through, and maybe they can sort of help you navigate through that. So remember, decide, recognize, acknowledge, and then make that decision to do that. And keep working through that so you know that you're going to get yourself to that place. It's very common for people to forgive. We don't forget necessarily, but it could come back where you feel that loss of forgiveness again. So just remember what you've done and how the work that you've done, and then revisit it. So it's really important if you can write it down. Because if you can write down how you got through it, and it could be like a month later, 3 days later, 2 years later, and it resurfaces again, remind yourself that you've been through the process of forgiveness. Read over what you've been through, or remind yourself that you did go through that, and then let the feelings come through, and then gently push them out again. Let's look at the process for self-forgiveness. So again, it's similar steps, and I find for me, I can forgive people very quickly and very easily. It's hard to forgive myself when I've made my own personal mistakes. So this is one I may need support with once in a while. I may have to bounce things off a friend or a family member. Again, decide or declare your intention to forgive yourself. So making a decision to come to that conclusion. Acknowledge that your actions and or words hurt the other person and or hurt yourself. Choose to consciously let go of your guilt. This is a myth that the more guilt you feel, the sorrier you are. Guilt keeps you locked in the past and keeps you tied to what happened. Remind yourself that you've made a choice to forgive yourself when the feelings of guilt or regret resurface. Similar to what I just mentioned earlier, is that if the guilt and the pain is coming back about what you have done to somebody else, or the hurts and things that you've caused, just remind yourself to forgive those feelings of guilt. Acknowledge them and then push them through and push them out. I made some mistakes as a parent, as I imagine some of you have, and what really helps for me is I made that decision. I think I'm a good mother. I thought I was a good mother. I did make some mistakes along the way. I did decide to forgive myself. I did acknowledge and so on. I did have some conversations with my sons about it. I said, when this happened, and it was a funny thing because they never really thought much of it. I think that they just realize that parents make mistakes, and now that I have an older son with kids, he realizes how hard it is to be a parent sometimes. So even those it's what your mistakes mean to you is what's important. So I thought some of the mistakes I made were kind of really great and big. And then when I talked to my sons and my stepchildren about some of them, they didn't really think they were that big of a deal. They thought, yeah, you made a mistake, you acknowledged it, and you moved on, and you made a mistake. So we're going to learn from that just as much as you learn from that, right? So that communication part, if you can communicate with the other people and it's safe to do that, and you can have a conversation with somebody else, that can also help you put that aside and put it to rest. So if you're able to do that, that's the best way for me, is to be able to have a conversation with somebody, and a protected conversation. And again, that takes us back to intercom, when I talked about conflict and communication and how to raise the issue and how to have a protected conversation with somebody. If you feel that a conversation with the other person may help you with that, then I think that's great. But for some people, having communication with the other persons or parties is not going to be helpful for them. So it's so very individual that you have to explore yourself, your own situation, and decide whether a conversation is going to help or hurt, right? Some people can't go through conversation. Some people don't even have contact with people. They just forgive something that's happened to them years ago, maybe it's through therapy or through counseling or whatever it might be, or they just made that decision that when that happened, I'm decided I'm not going to let that bother me anymore. I'm not going to let that sit with me anymore. I'm tired of holding a grudge. I'm tired of holding resentment. So I'm either going to let it go, or I'm going to forgive that situation so that I can have the best quality of life I can have in the day that I'm living in the current situation, right? I'm going to leave you with a couple little quotes here from the book that I thought I like them. One is, so these are quotations about forgiveness. So one of them is, the world tends to be your mirror. A peaceful person lives in a peaceful world. An angry person creates an angry world. An unfriendly person should not be surprised when he or she meets only people who sooner or later respond in an unfriendly way. And that's by Ken Keyes. The last one I'll leave you with is, at the heart of forgiveness is a change of our attitude and feelings from anger, resentment, and condemnation to a new willingness to put aside all negative feelings, thoughts, and all rightful claims. It is a unilateral decision to abandon grudges and let go the desire to get even. And that is with Paul Wong. I like that one because what a stressful life that would be if you're always plotting revenge and trying to get even with somebody else, rather than making that decision to let it go and forgive and move on. Because remember, forgiveness is for you. But again, people may need counseling. They may need their mental health professionals and things like that. So if that's the case, don't forget to reach out to your resources, because I've had people who are in our course, just the topic of forgiveness is very sensitive to them. And some people have a hard time even talking about it because they've got some really deep betrayals and hurts. And if that's you, make sure you reach out to your mental health professionals, your medical officer, your psychology. There's some numbers here for our military members. Don't forget your mental health number, okay? Our local 26 Health Services, you've got that one. There's also the Canadian Armed Forces Members Assistance Program, which is I think I've said this multiple times, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. 1-800-268-7708. That is the same for public servants and D&D employees. And then for NPF employees, it's 1-800-387-4765. But for our local, like for family members, don't forget you have your GMFRCs that you can contact, the Military Family Resource Center. And you would have your Prevention Support and Interventions Coordinator. You also have your OSIS, if you're somebody who is Operational Stress Injury Support Services, if you're somebody who needs that number. There's those numbers, there's multiple numbers, and I can't go through them all, so I don't have much time. So I'm going to put them, I will post all the numbers after this segment because I'm running late. But I'll give you one last one, because this is the Mental Health Mobile Crisis Line, and you can call that number, and it's 1-888-429-8167, and that's if you're having suicide ideation. addiction, if you need addiction services, or if you're struggling with your mental health. So I'll just give you those. I will post a bunch of these afterwards. I think Jeanette has put the helping resources pamphlet on there before, but I will work to see if I can put that on there for you. We're almost to the end. We're actually, I think we've got 3 left. So Jeanette is up this Thursday at 10 o'clock. She's going to be talking about safe party hosting. So some things to consider when you are hosting a party, because you could be liable if something were to happen to somebody else and you didn't take the proper precautions. So she's going to talk about safe party hosting, and then she's back on Monday for her Monday morning short. And then I'm back next Thursday, and then that's the end of our video segments for now. We're going to give ourselves a couple of weeks. We're going to take some leave and stuff like that and get ready for September. But that doesn't mean we won't have some surprise visits. We might pop in once in a while and give you a little titter-tat here and there. I'd like to be out in the community once in a while, popping on if I'm by the shore or something like that, to say hello to everybody. Who's here? Hi guys, hi Betty, how you doing? That's nice to see you here. Hi Edith, hi Lappy, and Stephanie. Those are the only 4 people I can see, but that's probably the only 4 people that are here. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great Monday. And if you want more information on managing through forgiveness, please just reach out to us. We have new email addresses on our health promotion 14-week health promotion Facebook page. So, did I say happy Monday? I don't know. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow's hump day already. Isn't that great? Anyway, I'm rambling and things are falling. It's not the best when things fall. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.